Hello and welcome back to Spring into Java. This is Glabe, your mentor and guide. So, I'd like to start out where we left off on our last video and continue to set up the local database and configure two profiles, one for development and one for production. These will connect with two different data sources, as well as they will also have two different paths and logins to access the control panel. Spring makes this very easy, and it's all based on the application.properties file and a couple of configuration classes that we will create. So, to start out, we're going to make a copy of the application.properties, and we're going to make two other variations of it. By default, if there's no profile passed or no profile given, it will use what's known as the default profile, which is just simply application.properties. In order to make more profiles, you would simply add a dash and then the name of the profile at the end of the application before the dot properties. Here's an example. Copy, paste, application-dev. Now we have another development environment. So to make this stand out, we're going to have a dash dev on the username. And when we go to the warehouse, we're going to slash dev. Alright, that makes our development environment, or our development profile, different than our production one. So now we will go into copy, paste again, and this time prod. And we're going to make a couple of other changes in here other than just what we did before. So now we're going to go prod again just to make the difference. Now this one is going to be validate, because it is production, after all. We're not looking to update it every time. Next, we're going to need to create a couple of files. But before we do that, we first have to go into our initial library here, and we need to tell this to scan for components. So we're going to have an annotation here for at component scan, and we just simply have to tell it where it's scanning as a base. So this is just going to be our root directory, xyz.glabestudios. Alright, that's it for this class. Next, we're going to make a new package, and this one is just going to simply be config. This is where we will create our database configuration. And in here, the database configuration is just going to have some very simple information. In fact, they're going to be 4 strings. So let me just type this out right quick, and then I'll explain it. So the first string is going to be the driver class name, just so we know what we're dealing with, what class we're dealing with. Next is going to be the URL, or the path to it. So we're going to go with the private string URL, which will be the path. After this, we're going to go with private string username, and another private string for the password. So we need a couple of annotations on here. first I'm going to give it a data annotation from Lombok so that we have getters and setters for those for all those variables. Next, we're going to need to make this a configuration properties. So, what is the configuration property? Well, this is just going to simply be spring.dataSource. There, that's it. Next, we simply need to make another class. This one is going to be the database configuration, database connection configuration. Alright. So, what does this one do? Well, we need a couple of other annotations on here. First one is going to be configuration. This is so that Spring can actually recognize it. And the next one that we're going to do here is we're going to enable configuration properties. And this is going to be to our database configuration that we just created. So, in here, we do need to import that that database configuration that we just made. So, private final database configuration. Now, so that this is actually going to be imported, we're just going to make take advantage of the required arguments constructor from Lombok. And now, this portion is going to be, we're going to set up a couple of profiles. These are going to be in relation to the dev and the prod that we had just made in the properties. So, another annotation. Spring loves annotations. So this is a profile annotation, and it is for the development or the dev prod. And it is also a bean, and it just so happens to be a string. So, and we're going to call this dev connection config. Alright, now because this is a string, it needs to return a string. So this is just going to simply return database config for dev profile. Alright, now that's just going to simply print out a string database config for dev profile. Next, I want to make a formatted string here because we're going to look to print out a little bit of information. The information that we're looking to print out here is simply the URL, the driver class, the username, and the password. Now, to do this, we're just going to do URL, and that's going to be a string, and put up a new line, and then we're going to call this one a driver class. Driver class name, again, string and a new line. Then we need the username, string new line, password, again, string new line. Now, to make this a little bit cleaner to look at, I'm just going to separate that a little bit here, and now we need to pass in those variables so that they line up with the strings that we're looking to print out. So, database configuration dot get URL, that is the first one. Database configuration dot get the driver class name, that will be the second one. Then there's just the username and the password. And password. There. And to save us from rewriting that again, I'm just going to make a quick copy of that, paste it down here, and now this is going to be for the prod. And prod again. So these will print out based on the profile that is active. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's go set a profile. Into our configurations, we are going to set this up so that it is on the dev active profile. So when we launch this in a moment, you'll see the terminal come up. When it does, it is going to be scanning for all components. It's going to recognize that there is configurations, and based on the active profile, it will print out the information related to this data source's connection. Here we go. Running here. Make this a little bigger. You'll see here that we have the active profile of dev. We are listening on 8080, and here is our printout. The URL tells us that we're looking in the database in our local root /database/warehouse, and in the dev. It tells us that our username for this profile is admin-dev, and our secure password of password. Perfect. Looks great. So, in our next video, we're going to go through and set up a user login system. So that way, you'll be able to open up your browser and log in and create an account. If you happen to have any questions or anything about this video, please leave a comment or join us on Discord for the conversation. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.